Hey guys, welcome to Cricket Fanatics Magazine, and this is your daily show. I'm your host Khalid Mohideen, and this is the show where we talk about all the major talking points in South African cricket. So I start the stream, and there's already a comment in the comment section about Kyle Verreynne, but that I must be so upset that Verreynne might not play now. I think yes, I will be upset if he doesn't get to play, but obviously I just want to see the best Proteas team obviously play as well. So what we're going to be talking about today is obviously Quinton de Kock's press conference. Now, I had Aditya, I spoke to Aditya about it, and you know that recently he's been going to a lot of the press conferences on behalf of Cricket Fanatics magazine, and he went to this one as well. So he wrote an awesome piece that is on the website as well, cricketfanaticsmag.com. We broke the story about Quinton de Kock saying that he wants to be the wicketkeeper for the Test side, and he's still going to be the wicketkeeper. He's not going to drop the gloves. So it was quite an interesting press conference. And I think we're going to talk about some of the main points. So I'll play you guys the clip, and then me and Aditya will obviously get into the analysis of it, and so forth and so forth. We also have another special guest to come on a little bit later on in the show, so stay tuned for that. But first and foremost, before we get started, guys, you know what you have to do. For the guys that are watching these videos and not subscribing, click subscribe, click that notification bell for all future videos. We're going to be turning on also the super chat as well. So if you guys can have the opportunity to want your comments to obviously stand out, you can use the super chat, and your comments will obviously stand out on the live stream. But let me bring on Aditya for the show, and let's get started. Welcome to the show, Aditya. Great to see you again. I haven't spoken to you in ages.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Huh? How's it,
Yeah,
Mama?
no, very good, man. From your perspective, obviously we saw the Quinton de Kock press conference. The usual, as we can expect from Quinton. Not much really to talk about much, but actually
Yeah.
some of the stuff. What I always note about Quinton is that there's always some subtle things that he says that makes you like analyze or read into things a little bit deeper. But let's just start with some of the clips that we have prepared for the guys. You guys can go watch the full press conference on the channel. You can just go look at that on the channel. It is in the playlist. We recently made a Sri Lanka playlist, so you can go look at that and you'll find the press conference. But let's start with a major question, and that was about captaincy. And this is what
Yeah.
Quinton had to say.
Yeah, obviously, you know, the big guys did phone me. I think it was just obviously they told me the situation that was in. I understood where they were coming from. Obviously, I didn't accept it immediately. I did think about it, but just understand it is only just for now this season. It's not a long-term thing. I think it's just more for when we get someone who really puts up their hand as a leader of the Test team that they will take over. I think the guys are looking for a long-term leadership role. Unfortunately, I won't be doing that. Like I said in the past, it does seem a lot on my plate, but I am happy to do it just for now until obviously things happen.
So I think the major thing that comes out of that, Aditya, is obviously the fact that he said that it's not for long term. So obviously they're going to be looking at someone else to be able to take the captaincy over from him, and it's going to be only till the end of the season. My suspicion is obviously going to be, of course, Aiden Markram if he can perform and put the runs on the board. But what did you take out of that?
I thought there were question marks about how it's been handled, in my view, because the composition of the team has not changed dramatically since the last series against England. I think that was the last Test series they played, and now, right? And even back then, when Faf du Plessis gave up the captaincy, we don't know whether he wanted to give it up or whether he was sort of asked to give it up in order to make way for a new captain. But
Oh, yeah.
even back then, your main contenders for captain were Dean Elgar, Aiden Markram, Rassi might be
In the mix.
a younger player in the team, still to be established, but he has some obvious leadership credentials. And if you really want to go for a wild card move, then maybe Keshav Maharaj. But because he's not a starter in every game, given the conditions in South Africa,
Yeah.
maybe that would be too ambitious. So the question is that Aiden Markram is still not back in the team, and we don't know how many tests he's going to get in order to sort of get back his groove, his confidence, and then put his hand up for captaincy. Rassi can still be argued is too young and in his test career to be able to take on the burden of captaincy, which leaves us with Dean Helger. Now, if Quinton de Kock is taking the captaincy right now, it means that Dean Helger is probably out of contention. And my question generally for Cricket South Africa is that if that's the case, why did you take the captaincy away from Faf du Plessis? It's not like he was doing a bad job. It's a captain is as good as the team as good as the team that he's got. And if you wanted to give Quinton de Kock just 2 tests to captain, then you might as well have given it to Faf. There was no point in just changing captains if you didn't know who these contenders were. And it's not like the situation isn't the same as it was last year.
Yeah. You know what the shock thing for me was that Dean Elgar came out so confidently in the interview with me, and he said that, like, I want to be, like, it's the logical choice is to pick me as test captain.
Yeah.
So when he told me that in the interview, I was quite shocked that he actually told me that, and I thought that automatically that he would be the next guy, and it was always going to be a stopgap guy, because we all know that Aiden Markin is most likely going to be the next guy or the next captain that they're looking at. But obviously the performances have to match up his captaincy as well. You can't just be a captain. I mean, you don't want a captain that's not performing. So I think they first want to allow him to maybe show that he can get his form back again. People are very harsh on Aiden. We can maybe ask Shaun. I'm not sure if he has the stats available for us, but if you look at Aiden's performances, it hasn't been as bad as people actually make it out to be. I mean, there was 2 tours. Obviously, there were 2 tours that they played abroad. Obviously, in the subcontinent, that he really struggled, but so did the rest of the team. So apart from Tianus de Bruin that scored a century away, and Zubair Hamza that scored obviously 60 in India, I mean, the bar that a lot of the players have actually struggled in the subcontinent. There is not only a young batsman like Aiden, who was in his first tour in the subcontinent as well. So, I mean, people are a bit harsh on him in a way. Another guy that people wanted to throw into the mix is Temba Bavuma as well. Some people mentioned that because Temba came out and he spoke about responsibility and taking responsibility. I mean, he said that to us in our interviews with him for the new magazine that we put out last month. So it's another option as well. Keshav was another name thrown in the hat. There are a lot of people that actually back him as a potential captain, but with question marks over the fact that he's a spinner and he might not play in every single game at the Wonders and Centurion because of obviously those conditions are good for seamers, then how can you pick a captain that's obviously not going to be able to play every single game for the country if that's the case? But let's move on to the next point. I'm going to talk about playing against Sri Lanka and of course the wickets, and then we'll move on to the approach after that.
Against Sri Lanka, look, we got a lot to rectify. Obviously, they came here and they hurt us on our own grounds. So we want to rectify that and obviously win the series convincingly, which will hopefully that can happen. So those would be the 2 things, I guess. No, I don't think we need to give out any message or anything. I think the wickets speak for themselves here at Wonders and Centurion. Obviously, we know there's a bit of pace and bounce, and it does get a little bit up and down as the test goes on. And depending on how the wicket goes, sometimes it can spin. So, I still think they don't have to do any talking towards the groundsman. I think they should know what to prepare. They're going to prepare good wickets anyway. It's just the nature of Centurion and Wonders. So, hopefully, that's what you're expecting. Whether we get it or not, it's another thing. But we are expecting some decent wickets. Look, I think we want to play clever test cricket. We want to be streetwise in the way we go about things. I don't know. I think just quite aggressively. I think we want to be able to throw first punches. I think in the past we've let other teams throw first punches instead of us. I think that's maybe where we want to get better at. Obviously, it's just the way we want to play it. It's a lot more clever, aggressive, streetwise. I think that's the way this team needs to go forward. So I think we are pushing for that type of cricket at the moment. Look, Obviously got asked the same question yesterday. My thing was that we do have young players. My thing is, like, I've got guys that need to learn and learn fast, especially where our team is to where I see the rest of world cricket, especially when you play against the likes of Australia, India, England. We probably won't be playing those guys soon, except for Australia. But those guys have got their teams who are sorted, solid in their lineups, and we've got a young team. Obviously, we've got 1 or 2 seniors, but we need our younger guys to come through and learn fast, so we can have a structured team. That's what I would hope for this season. Obviously, we're very doubtful we won't be playing the final game of the championship. But yeah, just for the new guys to come in and all the boys to really start scoring runs and putting up their names.
Aditya, go straight into it.
Well, I think he expressed his concerns with respect to the current team and the fact that they really have to work hard in order to be able to compete with India and Australia. With India, I guess I don't have much of a leg to stand on given the recent 36 all out. But it's the fact is that most teams have struggled to play away from home, and in order to be able to succeed away from home, you really need to have all bases covered. So he's right when he says that it's the batsmen in particular need to find ways to score runs in alien conditions, and that will determine the success, certainly. But then I think South Africa also have the advantage of a very good record in Australia. The last 3 times they've gone to Australia, they've won. So that's encouraging. But yeah, I think it's ultimately it's down to consistency in selection, giving players confidence, sticking with them through their rough times, and just having a certain degree of role clarity for each batsman in the team. Ultimately, there is quality and they will come good.
Yeah, they will. And it's the time now, I feel, to test. Like we said in some of our podcast shows, there's not a lot of opportunities for the guys in the other formats now that we're pushing for the World Cup in other formats, of course. But for this particular format, because we're out of the Test Championship for this year, like he said in his press conference as well, they don't think they'll win the Test Championship. It's time now to obviously try new things and obviously give people a chance. Now I'm going to play you the breaking news section or part of this whole press conference, and that was about the wicket keepers. And that's when we're going to start debating and talking about the main thing, and that's when we're going to bring on our next guest, Shaun, onto the show. So let me just play you what he said, and that was actually quite as you guys said, I will be very sad about this particular news. I'm not that sad. I would love to obviously see Calvert and still get picked as a batsman, but this is what Quinton had to say about keeping.
To be honest, yeah, I'm gonna keep Test cricket. I wasn't actually gonna keep in the ODIs against England. We're gonna give someone else a chance. So we are looking at things now that I am looking after the Test team for a little bit. We are looking at ways to get a lot of things off my shoulders. But obviously, Test cricket, I think I need to be there as keeper. So yeah, I will remain here. And obviously, we've got the likes of Glenn around, Glenton. There's a couple of new faces. Still getting to know everyone. Obviously, we're still in quarantine times and certain protocols, so unable to really meet the guys yet and get to know them. So yeah, there are some nice faces, around, and it's nice to see them all here.
So, as I said, here we're going to introduce you to someone. You might see him obviously on Twitter as Shaun_analytics. But welcome to the show, Shaun. Great to see you. Great to talk to you. Just introduce yourself to some of the guys out there that don't know you yet.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I am on Twitter at Shaun_analytics. I've got a big passion for South African domestic cricket. I am involved with I've been involved with 2 franchise teams, currently with the Dolphins, where we do some analysis for them, match preparation, some involving some pitch vision stuff too, analyzing the opponents, our own players, and also some of the scouting in terms of like, which semi-pro players are the ones that you need to like try and get contracts for, or where are the gaps in our own squad and stuff like that, So yeah, that's a bit of like my current role in cricket, but this is just like a part-time hobby, which became a bit more, which is always a good thing. But yeah, maybe one day to be fully involved with cricket full-time.
That's awesome. So, as the comments are already saying here, what somebody saying that Khalid Rad's incoming because they know that I'm a massive fan of Carl Verena. So, I mean, I can't speak about him enough, and it's mainly because obviously of his mental ability. I really respect that. That's something that you can't really look at with regards to stats. But let's just talk about the keeping in this country. Shaun, what sort of stats can you bring out between like Quinny with regards to keeping and Carl? Are there comparisons that you can bring up?
So it's kind of difficult because Quinton, like, he didn't actually have like much of a history in our domestic cricket because this guy was seen from a really young age. And even if you look back at like people when they made their debuts, like some people really had to like knock on the door and have like 100 after 100, and thinking like Tianis and Hamza and these players who averaged 50 versus Quinton, who sort of like averaged I think like 37 by the time, or like this is at 4-day cricket. He has a good 3-day record, but like in 4-day his record really wasn't that good before he made his test debut. But obviously they saw that the raw talent was there, and obviously had his ODI stuff before then, which also then gave him that like push. So it's kind of difficult to sort of like make that, like comparison between the two of them. But the one thing I can definitely say is that although they have very different playing styles, I'd say, because Calveren is a lot more of like a touch player, a lot more finesse, very soft hands, is that their strike rates are quite similar in the sense that like even though Kyle's not like a very forceful player, his strike rate is still quite up there compared to a lot of other domestic players, which just sort of shows that he's not really troubled by the domestic bowlers as much, because like our philosophy is that like a high strike rate shows that you have a wide range of shots. You have an easy way of getting off strike, like the room or the margin for error for the bowlers is a lot smaller, versus people who bat at a slightly slower tempo, they may struggle even more against a higher quality attack, so that's definitely stuff which like shows that Kyle is definitely, he's got the same stuff to make it at the next level. There isn't any real concerns which pop out and says, like maybe this, or he may not be ready, but like everybody has been singing his praises, and I can't really see why not, because the only real concern I had for him was that he didn't really have much power in a lot of his shots, but in the shorter format of the game. But that's even something which like I gladly say I can change my mind on, because I recall watching him for SAA, I believe last year in India, when all the 50 over games were reduced over matches. So they were essentially like T20s or like 25 over matches. And he had no problem, clearing the boundary or, finding the gaps and scoring at a very high tempo. Because I feel like that was one of his main criticisms, because he was not originally drafted in the 2019 MSL. And then he only played for the Paul Rocks after there were several injuries, because I think Aidan Markram punched the locker, and then he came in as an injury replacement for that. And even in the 2 games that he played for Paul Rocks, like he really had a good tempo, and he played a pivotal role in the games that he played. So it is something which like you can see the development he made in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I was quite surprised actually, because I think in the warm-up game, Kyle scored a 50, I think, in the first MSL and for the Blitz. And I was quite surprised that they didn't actually, but I think he got a head injury, I think, in that tournament actually. And I was surprised that they didn't get him again after that. I was quite surprised about that, because I mean, it was very unlucky for him, but he showed his capabilities obviously for the Rocks after those injuries you're talking about. But can I talk to you a little bit more about Kyle's keeping? So I've spoken to some wicketkeeper coaches, and with regards to Kyle, they have told me things about his keeping that really startled me. And when they compared his keeping to Quinton de Kock's keeping, now we know Quinton as, you can say, an electrifying keeper, one of those keepers that are showy, that dive around and make those splendid catches and crazy runouts. He's a very flashy type of keeper, I feel like he's someone that's very good on the eye to watch with regards to that, and he does the massive gestures, whereas Kyle is more of a neat keeper. When I spoke to these coaches, they told me that because Kyle's technique is so good and his training is so good and he was coached so well, he doesn't need to dive because of his foot movement. So he'll do double steps, take a catch instead of doing a dive. Diving is his last resort. So when it comes to the keeper stats and comparing his keeper stats to some of the other keepers in the country, how does Kyle weigh up to the rest?
It's a bit difficult to say because you can it's because there is not real data on drops, right? So I can't tell you how often he drops catches because what actually was a chance, did it bounce, did it not, who records this, and all these things. So you can only really look at catches taken, and then that also then just depends on the different bowling attacks that you have at your disposal. So for example, Kyle was very lucky that he had Dane Patterson for quite a few seasons, and Dane was at a domestic level, he was a very fearsome bowler and nicked a lot of people off, so it's very difficult to sort of comment on a fielding stat because that is one of the shortcomings of cricket is there is no real metric for evaluating keeping or evaluating fielding in general, because you can see, okay, this person effected a run out, this person took a catch, but you can never see, okay, how many times did they drop catches, how many times weren't they able to create the run out where a better fielder would have, so it is a very subjective thing where you said he's a very neat keeper, and that's also what I thought, because from what I've seen from his 4-day dismissals, it's no big movements, no big gestures, even his stumpings, it's just this thing of the bail's already off before the batsman had a chance, so he doesn't come across as somebody who is a part-time keeper or who has any flaws. He does seem as somebody who you can trust as a keeper no matter what, and the fact that he's such a good batsman is just a huge benefit, is that he can play as either. He doesn't even need to play as a keeper because he is such a good batsman.
So Aditya, I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask Shaun about some of the other guys, because there's some newer guys, and Shaun has been posting a lot of little clips. He did an amazing compilation of Quinton Steerman and what he has to offer at the 4-day cricket level and what some of the wickets that he's taken. Is there anybody that you want to know a little bit more about that is in that Proteas side or in the squad?
Actually, I had a question. My question is actually about the keeping stats, because how do you take conditions into account? For example, in world cricket today, I think two of the most prominent wicket keepers would be Wriddhiman Saha from the Indian team and Tim Paine, the Aussie team, and both are known to be excellent keepers. But somewhere Saha has an edge because he can keep better in spinning conditions, and because there's that famous expression about you don't really notice good wicket keeping unless you mess up. So how do you sort of evaluate these things, particularly in South Africa where you don't really have spinning wickets?
If I have to be honest with you, I honestly feel that in South Africa at the moment, wicket keeping isn't seen as that crucial of a talent or a skill where you will forego the batting for the superior wicket keeping skill. And it's even to the point where a lot of teams have no problem in putting their wicket keepers, at the top of an order, which may be even worse for their keeping skills because, they're a lot more fatigued. So, for example, the Dolphins had Grant Rulofson be their keeper and opener for an entire season, which is a lot of work for one player, So not everybody is as fortunate that they can, and the Lions recently have been doing the same with Ryan Rickleton, So it's a lot more about batsman first, wicketkeeper second at the moment at a domestic level. So I don't even know if it is something which is, and I'm also a bit guilty of that, where it's a thing of okay, do they tick the box of keeper? Yes, as opposed to saying how great are they as a glove person, because you said, we don't really have these spinning wickets, so you don't necessarily need that niche skill. It's just mainly fast bowling and edges, and yes, it's kind of difficult to gauge, because we don't have all this information. So you do rely a lot on the people who've seen the players, word of mouth, and very subjective things. But it's not possible, at least for me, to basically say, yeah, this person is a better keeper than that person because of keeping. Because even though one may have taken more catches than the other. I don't know how many chances, they had, and if there were any drops and things like that. And that's where you need things which I can't provide, like eyes and, word of mouth and what the players think and all these things. But my overall opinion is that keeping just isn't like a Saha would not be valued in South Africa, unfortunately, because of the fact that they would look at his batting first, keeping second, and they would say, we would rather have a better batsman than keeper, even though, for example, like the drop can change a match, and you need, especially in the long format. I'm a fan of like a proper keeper for the long format, not using your part-time keepers. But that's not always the way it goes.
Yeah. I can actually add to that, Aditya, because I've seen many times where preparing before tours, maybe there is a keeper missing, or maybe they need a backup keeper, and they will see someone with a little bit of potential, and they will start cramming and teaching him keeping within a couple of weeks before a major tour, and to give him some skills. I looked at it and I was like, that keeping is an art. Wicket keeping is an art. You need to and when you ask a lot of wicket keepers in South Africa and ask them how they became keepers, not a lot of them would have been looking up to Quinton de Kock and saying, okay, let's not use Quinton de Kock, maybe another wicket keeper, and say, oh, I want to be like that wicket keeper. Not a lot of guys would say, I'm looking at Mark Boucher, oh, I want to be a wicket keeper for South Africa. A lot of them at the time, as kids, they're looking for a wicket keeper, and someone will say, okay, you can take the gloves. Who wants to take the gloves? Okay, you want to take the gloves as a kid, and they'll throw you the gloves and you become a wicket keeper. It's like by chance. It's not even, a lot of kids don't even they don't come to the team and say, okay, I want to be a wicket keeper batsman. That's not the way it goes. It's kind of by chance. So what Shaun's saying is actually 100% correct. Shaun, there are some comments over here about some of the other guys. Are you willing to maybe talk about them and some stats maybe on them? Do you have that available?
Depends what you want. Sure.
Yeah, okay, cool. So a lot of people want to know about Quinton Steelman. Now, I made a statement about Quinton, and I don't know if you have this data, but just on observation of myself, normally his first spells are brilliant. So with the new ball, he takes a hell of a lot of wickets, or he takes quick wickets, normally 3-4 wickets maybe in his new ball spells. But when the ball gets a little bit older, he tends to struggle to get the same treatment on of the pitch and the movement of the pitch and take wickets in his second spells. There is actually a question over here if you know any stats with regards to Quinton after his first spell. Is there anything that you can say about that?
Yeah, I'd have to look and pull it up because I can find it, but it is interesting you mentioned that because I was speaking to a player within the Warriors setup, and I was just sort of talking to him about our sides for the Boxing Day and all these things, and I was saying I thought it would be very exciting to see Quinton have a go, simply because I like what he's done, and I feel that he creates wickets. He doesn't wait for wickets to happen in terms of soft things the batsman does. He goes out and fetches the wicket, which I really appreciate. But this person told me that but he said that if Quinton plays, he wants Vian to play as well, simply because he's not quite sure if Quinton's got the stamina yet for all these long spells, which will be required of him in a 4-person attack. So it is something which is a concern, and I've also I'll try to pull up the data now, but it is something where it does appear that way, that if the ball is talking, then he definitely makes sure the batsmen are worried. But if not, then it's almost then he becomes a bit one-dimensional, and then what's next? And then this is also a bit of a question of, but then who are the people who are going to teach him these skills? So has he reached the top of where he can at domestic level, and he needs to now go to the finishing school, which is the Proteas, where he can get the people like Rheeder, maybe Vern, and other people they get to assist them to teach them these older skills, because he may have played with Anrich, but then Anrich left and learned things at the Proteas and hasn't come back yet, so there is a bit of this lack of knowledge in the domestic system at the moment, because a lot of our older bowlers are no longer there, and it's young guys having to relearn these skills and teach each other, So it is something which I have also noted. Can't really give you a stat on it yet, but yeah, it is something which I feel is a concern, but not enough to not make me want to play him.
Yeah, because my point, and Aditya, you can add to this. I would actually play Quinton as the new ball bowler, opening the bowling with someone else like Lungi Ngidi maybe, because Lungi has shown what he can do, especially at Centurion, and obviously at the Wanderers as well. But I mean, Lungi is a very good bowler with a new ball as well, and their pace tends to drop when the ball gets a little older. So I would rather play Andrik Nokia, and a lot of people are asking for Andrik Nokia, and I think that he's learned a little bit of reverse swing now in his recent times. He's learning that art. He said he's been working on that, and he said he's been working on his swing bowling a lot, and he's a lot quicker with the old ball. So I think if we can maybe work that out in some way, where Quinton takes the new ball, I think that would be a perfect combination. Aditya, is there anything from your side that you want to add?
Definitely, I think this series is an opportunity for the Proteas to really try out new talent. Because I don't want to say that Sri Lanka is an easy team, particularly after what happened the last time they were in South Africa. But I don't think there's a better opportunity for the Proteas to try out guys like Quinton Sturman and see where his strengths lie, because he is a player for the future. And the more they nurture talent, I think for South Africa now, it's more about nurturing the talent that they've got, because there's plenty of it there. But they have to make sure that there are all these players in the system who get the attention that they need, because now I don't think they really have the challenge of losing players to the callback system.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So Shaun, I mean, a lot of guys are also asking, and we've done a full on lockdown episode with Michael Pretorius, where he spoke to us and gave us insight into his career, etc. Can you give us some insight into Michael? What is your thoughts on Michael from the data that you've seen and watched him play?
Well, yeah, Michal's got. I feel like it's two players, because there's Michal at the Lions, and there's now Michal now at Knights. And sometimes these things happen, where a change of scenery, a change of coach, more opportunities really brings, something else out of a player. So my first, I never really got to see him much at the Lions because he played so infrequently. And then he also played, 4-day games, which weren't televised then. So to me, he was sort of then just someone I knew, but not, top of, that you would note. He was just sort of like another player, sort of like a coordinator drive, if I can put it that way. But now that he's been at the Knights, he's definitely become the leader of their attack. And what I have noted from his dismissals thus far is that it's not quite as or it's not as much like Quinton, who, for example, he creates wickets from nothing. Like his Peter Malan dismissal, that ball just moved. Excellent. The one against Yanaman Malan as well, Jason Smith, so many of these players, who were either really good players or set at the time, they he just sort of defeated them. Versus Michal this season, he's got a few of those, but he also has a few where it has been a bit soft on the batsman's side. So I do want, I don't want to take anything away from him, but it's just not the same, I don't know, X factor yet that Quinton brings, So I do want to see more of what he brings, but yeah, I do feel that Quinton is ahead of him at this time, but he also has this knack with the bat where he can chip in. Not enough that I would say that he is now an all-rounder, but more that, he is someone like Kishov at 8, where you expect him to be able to handle the bat, but not almost like a Vern where it's almost where you are willing to put him at a 7. So I think he's almost like the perfect number 8 that you can have, where he's a frontline bowler and he comes with this bucket load of runs, which, your tail, you're not really expecting them to bring. And yeah, he's a very exciting bowler now. And Alan Donald has done wonderful things with the Knights bowlers, because one of my favorite things is Budaza, where he's almost utilizing him like a Mitchell Stark in some of the games, where it's sort of coming around, left arm, bouncing the guys, trying to make them feel uncomfortable. And some of
giving them a ruthless edge in a way.
Yeah, like he's sort of like, because I just feel like having Alan Donald, tell you, like, but you're good, you can do this, like the batsman should be afraid of you and all these things, it's white lightning, and you sort of like believe this and you like feed into it, and it really can help you push yourself mentally that extra yard where, like you previously may not have had that self-belief. So he's definitely done something with those bowlers. And it's a shame that they have so many injuries, but I mean, like when they have everybody available, the Knights bowling attack is easily one of my favorites on the domestic scene.
Yeah, I'm very excited what he's going to do with Gerald Coetzee, seriously. Like, yeah, so if Gerald Coetzee just gets some of that mentoring and that, because Gerald shows that fight in him, but you'll see when you talk to him, he's very humble, very quiet, very like subdued. But when he's on that pitch, he's another animal. So like, I'm really excited to see what he's going to do with Gerald, someone like Gerald Coetzee. Aditya, do you have any more questions for Shaun before we say bye to him?
What do you think the domestic scene needs to do in order to produce more batsmen that are adaptable?
It's a good question, because like it is something which we do notice, we take into account, is like how do players do in different environments? And like it's a difficult question to answer, like how do you fix it other than like having camps and all these things. But what I would also say is that like there should be a bit more of like a healthy attitude towards players playing for more than one team, because a lot of our players play for like the same team throughout their entire careers, and they sort of like make a habit of like this is their fortress. Elsewhere maybe not so much, but this is where they're good. Versus I feel like if a player really wants to go to the next level, they should be willing to sort of like move out their comfort zone and seek, like other places and learn more. Like for example, Tony Dezorzi moving from Titans to Cobras, and like for me, excitingly, like Keegan Peterson going from Bloemfontein, or like the Knights to Durban with the Dolphins, because before he moved, his record at coastal venues wasn't that great. Compared to his venue like at the Highveld and Inland, But then in his first match for the Dolphins, he scored that 149 against a Lions attack with a lot of good bowlers in it. Because I mean, they had Forte and then Hendricks, they had Dwayne Pretorius, they had Saboto, Magala, Pangiso. So I mean, like it was a very good attack, and he and Advia, like sort of put them to the sword. And he was batting in conditions unfamiliar to him, but he was able to adapt and overcome it. And I feel like just sort of like this thing of wanting to play in different venues and wanting to put yourself in other conditions is something which players who want to play for South Africa and who realize that they have the potential to play for South Africa should be wanting to do, because of the fact that, I mean, if you're going to play for SA, half of your games will be away from home, and a lot of those conditions will be very foreign to you. So it doesn't help that your entire career before South Africa is based in one place. You need to sort of, be willing to put yourself out there. And I respect the players that are willing to, move franchises. Because, for example, like Magala, Sapamla, they do well in their conditions, but it's so different to do well in St. George's as a seamer versus the Wanderers as a seamer, because you're completely different length, different ways of getting the batsman out and having to adjust to these things. And it's, like I said, it's very easy to get, or I think it's very easy to be in a comfort area where you do well, and then sort of put in the back of your mind, I don't need to focus too much about doing well there because I only play like one match a year there, versus like being there and being like, okay, fine, my home is my unfamiliar territory. I need to work on this.
Yeah. That's why I was so excited about Reinhard van Toorn playing the Cobras, because he's never played at Newlands yet. So, like, I wanted to see what he could do on a Newlands wicket. Okay, the Newlands wicket has changed a bit because of the construction that's close by, but I wanted to see what he could do over there, because all 6 of his centuries, even in 2, I think he got 2 in semi-pro cricket and 4 for franchise cricket. All of them is Bloemfontein. So I was like, that's quite crazy. But although he did get a 50 in Durban, hey Shaun?
He did. So he's done reasonably well at like random places. So he's done well in East London, where he's scored like 100 runs for 1 dismissal. Like, Mangaung is easily his favorite, but I mean, he averages like 40 in Durban. He also likes Kimberley. And I agree, like, because I saw Rory Kleinfeld say the same thing, where it is this thing of he needs to adapt to playing to conditions which he is foreign with. And Bloemfontein is, I think, almost every batsman's favorite ground, because like when I was looking at like his stats versus some other people's stats at Bloemfontein, everybody loves Bloemfontein. It's just
Even
like a lovely
Keegan,
place. It's a lovely place to bat, apparently. I think even I can make runs there. So as a specialist 11, but so I agree. I was also excited to sort of see him play at the more coastal venues, because like even if he does well at like Wanderers or Supersport, it's not quite the same challenge as playing at the sea, where just because of like the proximity to the ocean, like the ball does move a bit more and the air is completely a lot thicker. So it is a very different, style there. But the thing is that he is very young and there is a lot of hype around him from a lot of current players. So I do believe that, like it is worth to punt this kid, because I mean, it's not as if he's sort of like doing meh, and then you punt him. He is doing really well and the talent is there. So, might as well see if it is something you can work with.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Shaun. This was
No
awesome.
worries.
I would love you to come on more shows in the future. Then you can get. It would be nice to actually have you on a podcast show where it's more laid back and we're just talking randomly, and you can just put us in line when we're talking crap. But thanks a lot for coming on the show. I really enjoyed your insights. Aditya, to you too. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. I will obviously get you guys back on next streams that we can. So I'll see you again soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, man. Cheers, guys. So, guys, that's all we have for you today. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that insight. It was quite phenomenal what we heard from Shaun and what we heard from Aditya. For the guys that are tuning in now, don't forget to please like, comment, share, subscribe, click that notification bell for all future videos. Don't forget to obviously download the latest issue of the magazine or subscribe to our magazine. It's free of charge. It's on the screen, the link, and in the description. If you want to know for all updates, cricketfanaticsmag.com is where you'll find all the updates, all the news updates, all the new team news and etc. and everything that's happening. You can obviously go to a Sri Lanka series tab where we will be updating you on all the test series and everything that's happening in the test series as well. If you guys have a business and you're looking to make money online, even if your business is offline, we've got a free tutorial on this channel and the link is in the description if you want to find that out. Thanks to everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care, everyone.